Greetings and welcome back to Book of Shadows. Now, as you can see, we are not at the same place where we left off, because I have backtracked a bit, since I was right in my assumption that I actually missed a wrong end. Before you meet up with Sachiko at the party pool, you need to go inside the death room. So let us do that right now. There's a scene here that will only commence if you go here before you meet up with Sachiko. Now, what you need to do is to search this cabinet. There's a cabinet here that looks big enough to fit a whole person inside. It might make a good hiding spot. The door closes. The door to the room suddenly slammed shut, and the inside of it was missing its doorknob, rendering it unopenable. It seemed I'd been locked in. Now you can search different things inside here. And you need to actually search the sink. Inside the sink is a nail puller. You can use that to open the door. However, if you search for anything else and fail in opening the door, you will get 30% darkening. Once you darken 100%, you will get a wrong end. There's a fairly large stone sitting on the heavy wooden table. Take it. Take the stone. Acquired stone. Yeah, that's never gonna happen. Yes. Bang, bang. Well, that's fairly foreboding. I quietly and gently returned the stone to its original spot, and received some darkening while I'm at it. There are thoroughly decomposed remains on the table here. Based on the general appearance and what's left of the deceased clothing, they appear to belong to a very young girl. We already searched that. No. There's a key inside the cabinet. Take it. Take the key. Acquired key. Yeah, that did not look like any ordinary key. Yep. I quietly returned the key to its spot inside the cabinet. And now we are darkening very fast indeed. Actually, there are not a lot of things you can search in this place. You can search the sink. There's a nail puller shoved into the sink's drain. Pull it out. No. And now we're really darkening. You need to actually take it. You can get out using it. But we are getting a wrong end because that's the last wrong end in this chapter. Here we go. Welcome in, Yoshikazu. I couldn't move any part of my body. I'd just fallen completely limp, and my vision had gone black. I felt like I was being swallowed up by the darkness, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. It was seeping into every part of me. Oni-chan, Dasukete. Badam. Wrong end. The final one in this chapter. Wrong end number 3. Now that we have all the wrong ends and all name tags from this chapter, let us go back to the part where we left off in the last episode and actually finish this chapter. continuing from this save here. Let's go. But not for long. Excuse me. Well, you can certainly wish for it. Not that it's gonna happen. We wake up into a horrifying sight of a cute little girl. I awoke to find myself being shaken. Sachiko was trying to get me up and her expression had gone white as a sheet. Shit. She was on the verge of tears. Something seemed to have really spooked her. Did that huge man find us? Was she attacked? Right. You don't have a hairpin. That's all then. Suddenly everything got really spooky. And this is the place where you have to make your choice. The two of us searched every last inch of the room. Me with a wounded foot, but we came up empty-handed. You know what she's gonna ask. The entire time we searched, Sachiko hadn't said a word. I was hoping invoking our sisterly bond might help cheer her up. Yep. She raised her right hand slowly and pointed to my headband. As soon as I refused, Sachiko let out a faint otherworldly groan. In the next moment her face distorted and changed. She no longer looked like an innocent little girl. She looked well and truly like a demon now. Sachiko-chan? Yokose. Yokose! The look in her eyes alone sent chills down my spine. These were the eyes of someone who meant me harm, and was perfectly capable of inflicting it. Give her the headband. Give it. Stand firm. It means a lot to Yuka. Because it's actually given to her by her mother. And thus, if you give it to her, you are basically giving away your one ray of hope. Although you could argue that if you don't give it to Sachiko, she's gonna kill you, but really, do you actually think that in this situation anything is gonna save you? But in any case, if you give it, you will immediately darken to 100% and the game will end. If you stand firm, you will give Yuka a few more precious moments and also get a rather interesting scene. So, we will stand firm in our decision to not give it to Sachiko. Sachiko was continuing to groan under her breath. Fearing that what she might be capable of, I desperately tried to console her. Sachiko-chan, kite, Sachiko-chan! これはお母さんに買ってもらったばかりの And actually mentioning mom in Sachiko's presence is the thing that keeps Yuka alive for a few more moments. Somehow or another, that seemed to quell her anger. Her Her facial expression snapped back into that of the gentle, kind girl I'd been talking to all this time.
そうなの。だから開けられなくてごめんね。お母さんからの？
She was oddly receptive of this explanation and even seemed fascinated by it. Maybe I'd caused her to remember something about her own mother. She was a little girl after all, so her mom was probably really dear to her in life. Indeed.
お母さん。お母さん。
And of course this reminder of Sachiko's grim past where her mother died by the hands of the principal Takamine Yanagi Ori and her subsequent death, also in his hands. He's triggering memories that actually quell Sachiko's dark side for a short while, at least. She looked like she was on the verge of tears again. I was beginning to feel bad that I'd even broached the subject.
ごめんね。いいの。
She still seemed a bit sad, but she nodded. Maybe she understood that I wouldn't give her my headband, and maybe she was okay with it. Maybe. And suddenly, because we actually managed to avoid death, let's get this party started. And now, the body pool. Party hard. Corpse party. Ain't no party like corpse party. I don't know why I'm saying these things.
ねえ、幸子ちゃん。幸子ちゃん。ねえ、幸子ちゃん。
She wasn't even looking at me anymore. I must have really upset her.
あのね、幸子ちゃん。カチューシャはあげられないけど、他のものならいいよ。
Ugh. Anything.
他のもの？私にできることなんて少ないけど。他のもの。じゃあ、ここ。でも、ここは。もう、入りたくない。あ、幸子ちゃん。
Without a moment's hesitation, Sachiko just opened the door and walked right in. I didn't even have an opportunity to stop her.
どうしよう。
You go in and accept your fate. Into the body pool, where a grisly scene awaits us. The first thing I noticed when I entered the room was Sachiko's form sprawled out on the ground at the foot of the body pool. She was twitching a bit and moaning again, but this time it sounded more like a moan of pain than of anger.
幸子ちゃん？幸子ちゃん、大丈夫？幸子ちゃん。
I stepped over her, alright, and turned around so as to put the decaying bodies behind my back and out of my sight, and then started shaking her. I felt like I absolutely needed to snap her out of whatever this was before something terrible happened.
お姉ちゃん。
Too late.
よかった。気がつ。
I could feel her tiny cold hand on my abdomen through the thin cloth of my skirt. She was pushing me backwards with tremendous force.
触るな。
I lost my balance almost instantly and toppled over. It somehow felt like my fall occurred in slow motion. The walls and ceiling of the room grew more and more distant, but it happened gradually. And since she was facing away from the potty pool, you know where she's gonna end up. Then I felt the murky liquid on my back and heard the splash. I was in the pool of bodies. And everyone welcome my thumbtail. That must taste really nice. Because I'd fallen backwards, it took me far too long to regain my bearings. I was submerged in that horrible tainted water close to drowning. Enjoy. I finally broke through the surface, dodging the many dislodged eyeballs that were floating on it like peas in chicken soup. each one wrapped in dull red bulging veins. I didn't even want to think about what was in all the water I'd swallowed. Ew. Unfortunately, much of it was still on my tongue. My mouth was filled with tiny bits and pieces of other human beings. The taste was overpowering. I was gagging and belching so hard it felt like I was going to regurgitate all my internal organs. I tried to scream but could barely get any sound past the foul lumpy stew in my mouth.
お姉ちゃん汚い。やだ。ゲロ吐いてる。
I was losing consciousness fast, and I remember silently praying, silently hoping that this was all just a dream. As the world faded around me, I just kept focusing on that one last wish. Please, let me wake up in my bed.
お姉ちゃん、捕まって。幸子ちゃん。
I had no other choice. I grabbed Sachiko's outstretched arm and marveled again at her strength as she effortlessly pulled me out of the water. Water. And that little experience will darken Yuka significantly. My entire body from head to toe was covered in sticky gooey chunks of unidentifiable human flesh from countless different people. Just imagine... just imagine how that feels or tastes or looks like. Pretty gruesome. Slowly, hesitantly, I raised my hand to my head to feel around and determine what this something might be. I wasn't looking forward to the answer. What I felt was a huge clump of matter stuck to my hair, and just touching it lightly caused some of it to stick to my hand as well. It was a massive ball of fingers and toes. Ugh! Well, thank you, Sachiko, for notifying us. This is gonna be a short episode. No, it's not, actually. The severed digits were all so sticky and slimy that they'd gotten completely wrapped up in my hair, like rollers. They weren't coming out easily. Ugh, that smile. You little shit, why you do this? And then suddenly like... Are you alright, big sis? Sudden change, it's... I can't even summon words to describe it. Let's go. I must have passed out. When I came to, I was lying on the ground with Sachiko looking over me. She was on the verge of tears again. But wasn't that her voice I heard giggling at me? If not, then whose was it? It is and it's not. It's kind of a hard thing to explain, Yuka, so bear with me. No. That had to be it. The sweet little girl couldn't possibly have been that twisted. Oh, if only you knew, Yuka. I didn't care how filthy I was, as long as Sachiko was alright. That was all that mattered. Yes, she was my little sister now, after all. I had to take care of her. I had to look after her. No, she does not need looking after. But then again... Here we go. This is where, if you would give her the hairband, this is where it would end up. As soon as you give it to her. Yeah.
ね、幸子ちゃん。どうしちゃったんだろう。足が重い。
You are darkening, and it's meddling with your ability to control your body and mind. Somehow Sachiko had wound up in the lead, and I was following her blindly, struggling to keep up with her blistering pace. And I like to think that blistering pace is actually walking really slowly, but you guys like staggering behind her like a zombie, like, oh, how are you so fast? And of course Sachiko is... Sachiko enjoys all of this to the fullest extent. I looked down at my uniform. Sure enough, it was soaked through with the blood of those poor victims in the body pool and smelled really awful. I didn't recall saying that, or even trying to say that. It's like my mouth was moving on its own, speaking someone else's thoughts. Well, that's just mean. If this was how she was going to treat me, then why was I being so nice to her? Why was I doing whatever she asked of me? It was bothering me, and yet it wasn't. I honestly didn't care anymore. I was content just to follow this abusive little girl to the ends of the earth. How long had I been walking, I wondered. Sachiko-chan, mada aruku no? Dots. I was following Sachiko despite myself. I had no idea how much time had passed, but it felt like an eternity. And she'd completely stopped answering any of my questions. She came to a halt. She turned and looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes. And here we go. This will be the end. What was it going to be this time? I honestly didn't want to know, but the question came out of my mouth anyway, and so did this. Sachiko-chan ni nara nandemo ageru yo. Ja, tsugi wa ne. Inochi o choudai. Here we go. The end is nigh. Inochi? Somehow, some part of me knew this was coming. It was only a matter of time. Once again, I couldn't seem to control the words coming out of my mouth. It just said whatever it wanted to say, regardless of how I felt. She was laughing again. It was wild, crazy laughter. She was ecstatic. Sachiko's smile almost seemed to twinkle in the dull light of the corridor. She had the face of an angel, but it was all just a mask. I mustered all the strength I had, trying with whatever life was left in me to denounce her words and resist her pull. There was no hope for me anymore, but I still clung to what I could. If I could just reject her statement and tell her she was wrong. Huh?
ちゃんを探そう。お兄ちゃんならきっと何とかしてくれるからね。だからお兄ちゃんを。お兄ちゃん？そうだよ。私はお兄ちゃんみたいになれないけど頑張るから。兄ちゃんお兄ちゃんってうるさいんだよ。早くよこせ。殺してやる。殺して殺して殺して殺してくびり殺してやる。早く死ねー。幸子ちゃん。
My body shook and spasmed uncontrollably. I was being overtaken by an invisible force. It was compelling me to speak, to say what would be my very last words on this earth. A suicide note, when you get right down to it. Okay. You can have it. I'm sorry why I'm laughing, but I don't know. I just derive humor from the most disturbing scenes. That is just who I am. God damn it, Sachiko. Just die, please. Do us all a favor. Die and become the good little girl, and then you... Never mind. It was instantaneous. With one single blow, my skull was cracked wide open and blood splattered far and wide. I could feel blood trickling out from my nostrils and my right ear. My brain was jutting out from inside my head, fully exposed to the air. But I was still conscious. I could still feel everything. So funny! Ugh. And there we go. I saw a bright flash of light and realized she'd just taken my picture with that instant camera she'd been holding on to. And this looks familiar, doesn't it? Because this chapter actually was all just wrong and to explain what happens in the first game's wrong and where Yuka gets caught by Kizami. And this is how that photo came to be.
綺麗な写真が撮れた。いやしい女。
Sachiko was such a cute little girl before, but now her face was twisted into a hateful, spiteful grimace as she looked down on me in contempt.
そうだ。これお兄ちゃんに見せてあげよう。
How about no?
何でもくれるって言ったでしょ。もう私のお兄ちゃん。
No! Die! Sachiko began petting my sticky matted head with her coarse sticky hands in a mockery of my previous gentleness with her.
汚い顔。本当はこれを取り上げるのが目的だったんだよね。
It's nice how she, like, what a pretty little face! You know, this was what I wanted all the time. My scrap of paper from the charm. Yes, if you lose it, you are doomed to repeat your death over and over again.
お姉ちゃんとはまた遊びたいから、ファクトにはしないであげる。
Oh, I see. You are not going to actually make her do that. Thoughts?
また遊ぼうねゆかお姉ちゃん
No, how about... No. Chapter 6, Meyer, Dane. Cleared. There we go. Again, death. Chapter 7, Tooth. Chapter is now playable. Eri Kitamura. Soulful testimony unlocked in bonus menu. Eri Kitamura being the voice actor of Yuka, of course. It has actually only been 30 minutes into the episode, so let's start chapter 7, shall we? New chapter, the final one, Tooth. And this will be played from the perspective of our character we have not played as and only seen once before. Let us go forth and experience one final horror Heavenly Host has to offer us. This chapter is canon, though. For this, I can't speak. This chapter is canon to the story of the game. Byakuren Senior High School Student Council Room, 4:30 p.m.
おい生徒会長明日だぞ
Mitsuki and Fuguro.
ん？何がだ？
蹴り入れていい
却下。何があるんだ明日。こら！生徒会室で暴力行為は禁則と定めだろう。
知るもんか忘れてる方が悪いもん
やめなきゃ。こちらに非があるなら謝罪する。まず聞こうじゃないか。
この部屋の徹底掃除だよ見てこれ何これ片付けろっつうの何この玉入れのやつじゃん体育祭いつだったよ
I mean, it's full of balls. Okay, I'm childish. I'm sorry. Carrying on.
ああ、そういえばそんなことを言っていたか。
I'm just a little bit energetic this day.
一体
And also, this is quite funny compared to what the rest of the game is about.
忘れてたでしょ
忘れてたでしょ。
いや、記憶はしていた。僕も美月の意向には。
Nope.
普通に喋れ
ああ、忘れてたさ。俺だっていろいろ考えることがあって忙しかったんだよ。会長だからって何でもかんでもみんな俺んとこ持ってくるしさ。悪かったな。
Yep. You screwed up, and now Mitsuki will kick you into the ends of the earth. No.
許す
なんだ
え
初期としての進言ですたまには言い訳くらいした方がいいよ男らしい生徒会長もかっこいいけどさ
Yeah, I guess. Though, to be honest, Mitsuki is like the manliest of them all, even though she's not a man. Which is pretty impressive.
戦線離脱は許さないからな逃げられると思うなよ
The chapter has 4.
わかった。
This chapter has 6 name tags and 1 wrong end. So
わ
it's a
か
pretty
んねえ
short
やつだ
chapter.
な智弘ミンコは俺の嫁だっつってんだろ
But I will not be playing this chapter to the end in this episode because it's kind of long. But at the same time not. And yes, we got these 2 failures of human beings here with us playing their games like in the last game. God damn it. The only thing you do in this story is play dating games and die.
いや、譲らないぞ。涼介にはナナさんって人がいるだろ。
And in this chapter,
マジないわ。
you will also whine a lot. You got that Nana girl, by the way. Alright then.
バカ、3人からモテて初めてリア充だろ。上皇。
楽しそうだね、それ。ゲーム？
ゲーム？
おお、山本。お前もやる？タッチペンでグリグリしてチューするゲーム。女の子3人と付き合えるぜ。
何？
ハマるのはいいけど、一人に絞れ。
Yep. Girls don't like it when you're doing it with a lot of girls at the same time.
いって。
あんたら、明日のこと覚えてるんだろうね。
Please say yes, or else she's gonna kick your ass.
何でしたっけ？
You're dead. And Kuroi knows it. I had no idea any of this was going on in the student council room that day. I had other things on my mind, specifically a certain boy, because we are getting some romance up in here. Byakuran Senior High School Class 2-4 after school. Why are they still in the school after school? My name is Toko Kirisaki, the infamous scissor girl who killed Satoshi in the last game, and also killed herself, actually. So here we will see what actually caused her to be like that. I'd been waffling for quite some time on whether or not to say anything, but finally I decided to bite the bullet and ask his best friend, Kurosaki. Yeah, whose best friend is Kurosaki? You will see soon enough.
ねえねえ、ゆうやってさ、彼女いるの？
Yep, Kisame is the one who's being talked about. So, I'm sure you can understand why Toko would go crazy if Kisame turned out to be a murderer, while at the same time being the subject of her love.
あ、いや、あいつ今フリーだと思うよ。なんで？
Why? Use your brain, man.
狙っちゃおっかなーなんて。
マジ？おお、いいじゃん、応援するよ。
Yeah, Kurosaki actually knows that. Well, here we go.
でもあいつな、女の子といてもいっつもつまんなそうにしてるから、付き合えても切り裂きがあんまり楽しくないかもしれない。
I like his expression going like, I remember that time he tried to kill a hamster, and he's not exactly fond of people.
でも確かにゆうやってモテる割に手とか全然出してこないって女子はみんな言ってるな。
It's funny how Kisame is the craziest of them all and he's a hunk of a man.
それって悪いでしょ？
He's also actually the tallest character in the game. He's even taller than Yoshikazu. Isn't that kind of a bad sign, though? Kind of, but yeah, Toko actually explains it.
クリーンなイメージ。
Ooh, Toko wants some virgins here. And also, Kisame's mysterious nature can be quite compelling. This was Kensuke Kurosaki, who'd known Yuya Kisame, aka the boy I liked, pretty much all his life. I figured I'd come to him for all the information I needed in my conquest, since he was pretty much guaranteed to know Yuya's dating history. And so far things seem to be going really well. I mean, not only did I confirm Yuya wasn't seeing anyone, but I got his best friend's blessing too. And confirmed that he really wasn't the showy, obnoxious cool guy type. Unlike one other character who we will meet in this chapter. Hehe, that suited me just fine.
黒崎、ほら。
Hora. Kurosaki was understandably rather startled by the extraordinarily agitated female voice that suddenly rang out from behind his head. But that's Hell Girl Mitsuki for you. She was standing in the classroom doorway, arms folded across her chest, looking like some angry deity about to cast judgment down upon the world. And she had the deathly gleam in her eyes, the one that could fell the mightiest warrior before he even had the chance to draw his sword. Well, not exactly, but... If this was an anime, I would understand.
今日は生徒会室の徹底掃除するから来なさいって言ったでしょ。
いや、俺今日部活だって言ったじゃん。おい、フクロイな。
Fukuroi is defeated.
逆らうな。もう無理だ。
Yeah, this was definitely Helger's work. All the complexion was gone from Fukuroi's face. He was a man with a demon on his back. Whip at the ready, fully prepared to bring divine punishment upon all who opposed her. He was right. It was easier just to give in. So, let's go.
面白そう。私も行く。
Join them in cleaning a room? Well, okay, maybe it's pretty funny to see how Mitsuki actually bosses everyone around. I wouldn't know. I am not in this school.
手は多いほど良いぞよ。
You know what they say? The more the merrier. Mitsuki then grabbed the nape of Kurosaki's neck and began dragging him out of the door in a decidedly painful-looking manner. He was like a teary-eyed chick caught in the talons of a bird of prey, struggling in vain as he was being carried off to meet his grisly end.
俺生徒会じゃないのに。
Yeah, but you made a promise, so deal with it, man. Off they go. I just loved watching those boys interact with Helger Mitsuki. I couldn't wait to see more. I didn't even care if I had to clean the room in order to do it. I was a volunteer after all, so I was pretty much off the hook here. I could follow them at my own pace, no dragging for me. As soon as we left the classroom, though, we ran into Yuya. Or rather, I did, as in I literally ran into him. I wasn't watching where I was going and wound up slamming into him so hard that I fell over. Immediately he reached out his hand to help me up and ask if I was alright. Now that's a white knight if I've ever seen one. If only they knew. What a fun evening this would be. I imagined it ending with me lying in bed dreaming of Yuya's... I actually thought that was going into a whole different direction, but here we go. Dreaming of Yuya's perfect face inching even closer to mine, but instead... Oh. Ooh. You're dreaming something like that. Alright then. But instead, it went to the opposite direction and you end up in hell. If she's hacking and retching, she probably is not alright, Amy. Kudo. Book of Shadows episode number 7, Tooth. A rather strange name for an episode, but you will see why it's named like that.
どうする？みんなのところに戻る？
It is actually fairly impressive how many guys they managed to get into the same space. Because everyone of the Byakuran group is here, in the same floor, in the same nexus. Except Mitsuki, Fukuroi and Kurosaki. The stall door seems to be stuck and absolutely will not open anymore. But I was just in there. Maybe the lock somehow got jammed when I left. No, I don't think that's the case. Even with the knob turned on at full blast, there's no water coming through these pipes anymore. It's a mirror, but it's too cloudy to make out much detail. For some reason, the air around this spot feels unnaturally chilled. It would probably be best to keep your distance. Hello, man. It's a half-decomposed corpse. Unfortunately, it's too far gone to determine age or gender. But there's still a fully intact student ID name tag lodged between two bones, identifying these as the remains of a teenage girl. Komashiro Trade School. Tomomi Morinaga. Excuse me for a second while I search for this name tag and read... Wait. Where is it? Come on. Tomomi Morinaga. Komashiro Trade School. Well, whatever. I'm just gonna read it from here. Komashiro Trade School. There you go. Tomomi Morinaga. Age 18, member of the school newspaper club, always smiled brightly and put everything she had in the club promotion and advertising. There is the one name tag. Let's head out. And we've already encountered some bad things.
Ryosuke! Ryosuke! 痛いか痛いか膝と大腿部の関節を縛った。出血は抑えられるはずだ。
It's funny how the one person who is a murderer in this blue group and a psychopath and a sociopath is the one who knows what to do.
足も持ってきてるから心配するな。
And when we got your leg right here, don't worry about that. Yeah, that's a problem for us. We were in an old-fashioned, rundown and probably condemned school building. None of us knew how we got here, nor even where here was. I just emerged from the girls' room with Emi after losing my lunch, where Yue, Okawa, Katayama and Shimada were waiting. The whole hallway was an absolute bloodbath after what had happened. Poor Katayama walked into some kind of booby trap and half his right leg was lopped off, from the knee down. It looked excruciating. How is somebody supposed to handle a situation like this? Why did this have to happen at all? It must hurt pretty badly.
なんなんだよこの学校。なんで罠とか仕掛けてあるんだ。つうかどこだよここ。ふざけんなよ。
And this is the one of the most aggravating characters in the game. Because, well, it's a good character design, but it's a really unlikable character.
静かにしてよ。涼介大怪我してんだぞ。
あ？なんだおい。やんのかこれ。や
めて。
This is what tagged along with Mitsuki and the others got me. I thought it was going to be a laugh riot, and at first it was great. We all went to the student council room where we met up with Katayama, Shimada and Emi and started cleaning and goofing around. And then we were done. Emi suggested we all try out this new charm and she discovered on the internet. Trust things you find on the internet, people. She's nuts for that kind of stuff. As was Ayumi, and look what happened. She took out this simple white paper doll and we were all kind of fascinated. The one thing I don't understand is how the hell did Shimada, Kai Shimada, that guy on the right, that douchebag, actually come into all of this. Like, he doesn't even like anyone in this group. Well, okay, he does, but we will see about that later on. So we did as we're instructed, and then suddenly everything went dark. There was a violent shaking, and then we were here. I can't speak. In this old schoolhouse, no explanation. And Kisame is like ... because he's like... This pain and suffering fascinates me most. But I cannot reveal my dark side yet.
とにかく出ようよここ。
Nice thinking there, Emmy.
みんなで一緒にここを出よう。玄関に行こう。
片山は
俺が背負う。
Right. Yuya was so kind, you can always count on boys in times like this. Except if that boy is Kai or Okawa. Or Katayama in this case. Still, there was a potential problem with this course of action.
待って。でも今みたいな罠とかさあったら危ないよ。だけどだからまずは外までの道の安全を確保してから片山くんを連れに戻ってきた方が。
Kisame has no opinion on the matter.
賛成だ。
そっか。
陽介、陽介、大丈夫だぞ。お前を置いてったりしない。な。
Freaking Okawa is only caring about Ryosuke. Like, oh, I cannot even think properly. Okawa was in a state of absolute panic. He just kept muttering to himself at Katayama's side. The two of them had always been extremely close. Maybe even a bit too close. No, they're probably just friends. Really good friends. Not that kind of friends. It's only natural he'd be worried, though his concern kind of bordered on obsession. Yeah, kind of.
でもじゃあ誰が行くの？通路を歩いてるだけでいきなり足が切り飛ばされるんだよ。
Splitting up will not do any good for you.
お前今玄関行こうっつったじゃねえか。行ってこいよ。
Shimada practically spit his answer at her. I hate people like him. Sure, he had a pretty face. That's basically all he had, though. People like him pose as models in men's journals, but they're not good for much else. He got a lot of girls too, but I'm not one of them. I could never get past his awful attitude. It's such a huge turn-off for me when a guy acts that way. Not that I don't admire speaking with confidence and force. I try to do it myself whenever I can. But there's a difference between speaking forcefully and speaking in a way that belittles others. Shibata was basically just cold and uncaring.
私が行くよ。言い出すっぺだし。
Good job, Toko. It's like from this group the only two people I like are Toko and Kisame because... Well, Toko actually tries to do something useful. And Kisame, while he's a murderer, he's actually silently watching over this and not doing anything to hamper the progress of anyone else, even though later on he does exactly the opposite. But we're at this moment, so let's act like it.
俺も行こう。
And of course he also volunteers for this. And Toko is like, oh, my knight in shining armor. Let's kiss. What a difference. Like a night and day. Kind, thoughtful people like him don't make flippant remarks. They just man up and get stuff done. Or he is just not afraid because he lacks emotions that normal human beings lack. Or have. Not lack. I was crushing on him harder than ever. Because not only did I think he was both cool and hot, I also gained a ton more respect for him.
大人数で行く必要はない。行くならあと一人くらいだ。
And of course, the one person who comes with them... Dead silence, no volunteers, huh? Everybody just looked at one another, then looked away as if they were ashamed of themselves.
俺はどうしよう涼介。寂しいよな。
Well, you're as useless as a box of rocks, so you stay here, man. He was frantically shifting his gaze from one person to another. I'd never seen him so on edge before. Finally, the silence was broken by a loud, shrill male voice. Definitely not whom I would have picked, yep.
くそ、俺が言ってやるよ。
It's
お前は
douchebag
ここにい
number
ろ。
one.
いいの？女子の桐崎さんが行くって言ってるのに。
俺が行く。ヘタレはここで待ってろ。邪魔になる。
Yeah. As much as I don't like Kai.
分かった。俺は陽介についてる。頼む。
As much as I don't like Shimada, he was right. Okawa is really useless right now.
じゃあ行こう。急がないと片山マジで危ないし。
Let's go.
どこ気をつけてね。
Yeah, you're in a company of a hunk that is a murderer and a douchebag that is a creeper. Not a good place to be as a girl. Let's go. Was I scared? You bet I was scared, but in a situation like this everybody has to work together. And as long as I had any willpower left in me, I wasn't about to give up. Plus, it didn't hurt that Yuya was with me. So I knew everything was going to turn out just fine. And since, well, Toko just jinxed everything by saying that everything is going to be alright because Yuya is here with us, I think this is a good place to stop this episode. In the next one we will see exactly what Kisame did to turn out how Toko got crazy and also Emi got crazy and what happened to Okawa, Katayama and Shimada. And how it all affected Kisame. So, in the next episode we're gonna play Chapter 7 to the end and complete the story of Heavenly Host. But until then, thank you all so much for watching and I will see you in the next one.